Hello, my name is Dave Copper. I'm the chair of the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council, representing about 5,000 residents around the harbor, including residents of Westport, Mandalay Bay, Harbor Island Condominiums, and Seabridge. Our neighborhood council and our team of volunteers are made up of engineers, geologists, attorneys, accountants, and all other kinds of professions. I like this picture because it gives you a good visualization of what our whole footprint is like, right? So here we have the roughly 2.5 mile long Edison Canal, right? Here we have the northern part of the harbor, the Channel Islands Boulevard Bridge or Harbor Boulevard Bridge, the county controlled area. And then you can see the canal comes out right here. The northern part of the canal comes out in a pool, which the power plant pulled water from and cooled the pumps and generate the power, and then discharge the water into the ocean. You can see the urban areas, you can see the agricultural areas, you can see the new development North Shore Mandalay Bay being graded, and it's further along now. This is an older picture. So from the background, again, the power plant was pulling 1.5 billion gallons of water per month on average for decades, and discharging in the ocean. That stopped in February 2018, 6 years ago. This slide identifies the origins of some of the things that are flowing into the water, right? I don't think a lot of people realize how many canals and ditches and drains are flowing into the canal and into the harbor. And we identify that as important because when we do our sampling, we consider where things might be coming from that we're finding in the water. But let's start by looking at some of the stuff coming in the water. The blue line here, Doris Drain, starts around Ventura Road, is roughly 3 miles long and ends in the Edison Canal. West 5th Street, which is pictured here, this is a dry day. Our team got this when they were kayaking up this canal collecting water samples. This West Street drain, again, starts Ventura Road, ends up in the canal. There's the Woolly Drain that ends up in the canal. And then there's this major drain called Oxnard West, right? And it flows down Ventura Road to Channel Islands Boulevard. Between the lanes, it comes out at Fisherman's Wharf, right? This map actually came from the county Watershed Protection Agency. And so it should represent all the major things. But in addition to the 9 miles of major drains, there's many smaller drains. You can even see them if you drive down Woolly or 5th Street and you look to the north, you'll see pipes coming off the fields right in the ditches. And that they use a tile system for drainage, and so we get a lot of water flow after irrigation or rain. As you can clearly see, there are no filters coming into the 5th Street drain, and I think that's true for all of the drains with but 2 exceptions, which I will explain momentarily. So we found there's three threats to the harbor, triple threat to the harbor. The first one is bacteria, the second one is dissolved oxygen, and the third one is pesticides. So bacteria are an ongoing problem, have been for years, and I'll talk more about that. But our recent events, December rains specifically, resulted in about 4,000 sea bass die at the Sea Bass Enhancement Facility in the harbor. That represented nearly half of the sea bass that were brought up from the Carlsbad nursery. In terms of dissolved oxygen, we find that is a problem typically in the summer months, late summer months, as during the night the dissolved oxygen level goes below the state safety standard. I'll explain more about that in a moment. And then lastly, pesticides, which are now been included on the State Water Board impaired body listing, and I have more about that as well. So here we have the bacteria levels. This is a relatively dry day. It was 8 days after any rain, and we can see there are still 3 issues where we're over the state standard safety limit of 104. One here looks to be about 5th Street, looks to be the Hemlock Drain, looks to be the Oxnard West Drain, which we talked about on the last slide. They're all over the 104, and this is without any rain for some time. Now you can imagine that we just saw a picture of the 5th Street drain and the water flowing from the 3 big pipes. And so there's probably water flowing at this time. That's why it's here. There's almost always water flowing down Channel Islands Boulevard. We see that every time we drive by. And Hemlock, I would imagine, is about the same. But now let's talk about what happens when it does rain. So here we've got two charts. The one left is a moderate rain of about 0.8 inches. On the right, 1.3 inches. On the left, we call that a moderate rain. And we see there are 5 sites that are over the safety limit of 104, and a few sites that are not. And then after a heavy rain, 1.36 inches, right, they're all over the state safety limit. Top of the canal, 6,000. West 5th, 9,000. many in the thousands, a couple in the low hundreds. But they're all unsafe after rain. Our next finding is dissolved oxygen levels. So on the left we see the sensor that goes in the water. There's sea slugs on it, needs to be cleaned, and the ABC does clean them periodically. And on the right we see a chart. The chart where the green represents chlorophyll, which is our surrogate for algae, and blue is the oxygen, right? The safe limit on this is 5 milligrams per liter. And this is just 1 week, late summer, July. And typically at the beginning of the season, we see the blue line is up here and the green line is up here. And as the summer progresses, they get closer and closer together, like what you're seeing here. And what's interesting is every single night, the blue line drops below the safe limit of 105, got down to, looks like 3 here, less than 3 there. And our risk here is that if the oxygen level isn't recovered during the day, we could have a major fish kill. Toxicity is an interesting sample that we do. Our team collects water. The water is put in little trays, and little shrimps are put in the water, and they're monitored for 1 week. And what we see here is after the the same heavy rain, 1.36 inches, we see we had 1, 2, 3, 4 sites where we had issues with them surviving even 1 week. 90% died, 73, 26, 68. It's scary. We don't know for certain the cause of death, but we're beginning to think, based on the other data, that it's one of 2 things, pesticides or bacteria. Now that we learn more about what's happening with the sea bass, I'm inclined to think it's bacteria, but we don't know for sure. Here are the pesticides the State Water Board included in the 2024 Impaired Water Bodies list. It's called 303D list. This list, I went through it. It's literally thousands of rows in an Excel spreadsheet. But I did a search on Channel Islands Boulevard and Edison Canal and identified there are 4 new listings, 2 for the harbor and 2 for the canal. The 2 for the harbor are bifenthrin and permethrin, both pesticides. Edison Canal had malathion, which I don't think has been used for a long time, but I could be wrong, and permethrin again, same there. It's also just to note that bacteria remains on the list for Kitty Beach and Hobie Beach. Right, and has been for a long, long time. So I wanted to take, since we have permethrin in both the canal and the harbor, I wanted to graph out or display how that actually is working. So on this slide, what we see in yellow is the number of times over the state safety limit the permethrin levels are. So around Harbor Boulevard, it's 4 times over the safety limit. Around Dorset, it looks to be 26, 12 times over the state limit. Down by Woodley, 4.5. But then when you get into the harbor, Mandalay Bay is 3.2, looks to be Seabridge 1.5, and Westport 2 times the safe limit. So what I believe is happening is the tidal flow is pulling the water from the canal into the harbor, and the permethrin is being diluted by the greater body of water. I want to thank you very much for spending the time reviewing our presentation, and also share with you this picture of what the harbor was like when the pumps were running, and what we hope with your help will be looking like again soon. Thank you.